Okay, perfect. Okay, and all right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Actify's Connect series. We're your hosts, Ellie Wang, HC, and Varnica, and we're so excited to kick off this series where we connect with changemakers, leaders, and advocates who are shaping the world for the better. And today, we're truly honored to be joined by Indiana State Senator J.D. Ford. Senator Ford has been passionate advocate for equality, education, and community empowerment, and we can't wait to learn from his experiences and insights. Senator, thank you so much for joining us today. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, no, thank you for having me and for the invitation. It's great to be here to have a conversation with all of you. I'm JD Ford. I represent District 29 in the state Senate. So that covers portions of Hamilton County, Boone County, and the west side of Indianapolis, Marion County. So Carmel, Zionsville, the town of Claremont, and the city of Indianapolis. And it's great to be here. I serve our caucus as the minority whip. So my colleagues elected me to that position in the last election, caucus election, which would be 2024. So yeah, so I've been in that role for this past session, and it's an honor to be in this role.
All right. Sorry, we're having some technical issues on our end. But can
Okay.
you just share the story of what first inspired you to get involved in public service and then eventually run for office?
Yeah, so thank you for that question. When I was a student going through school, I took a class with a college professor, and he left a lasting impression on me. And one of the things that he said was, either you participate in your government or your government will participate for you. And that always kind of just rang true in my mind. And so I've tried to stay connected to what's happening at the local, city council, the state senate, things of that nature. I think it's really easy to kind of know what's going on at the presidential side of things, the national politics, because it's you really can't escape it. But really, truly, the impact I think, and that really helps people on a more of a day-to-day basis, is your local offices. So that'd be like your township trustees, your state reps, your state senators. So having that in mind, I just bought a home here in central Indiana, and I looked up who was representing me in the state senate and the state house, and recognized that the gentleman that was before me was just not sharing my values, and so I decided to say, you know what, I think that I can go out there and talk to my neighbors and campaign, and yeah, and so I lost my first election. That was in 2014, which was so hard. One of the hardest things I've ever had to do was stand before, my friends and family and say that I didn't make it. But I vowed that night that if I ever decided to run again, that, we would work really hard and put my name back on the ballot in 2018. And I was successful. And not only was I successful, but it was my birthday. It was my 36th birthday in 2018 when I got elected. So and it's a true honor to be in this role. And it's hard to believe that I've served almost 2 terms in our state senate.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for your answer. So there's this popular saying, at least what my mom told me was failure is the mother of success, and I'm sure that you've heard this message too. So like this it kind of shows the importance of failure for like everlasting growth. So after your first you talked about how your first campaign didn't go really well. After your first campaign didn't go through like you planned, what motivated you to keep going for your second campaign? And what can young people like me and her learn from that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, failure stinks. It stings. It makes you question if you're smart enough, if you're good enough. That imposter syndrome really kind of sets in. But as I got to thinking about it, I was helping people as a candidate. And I recognized that, wow, if I was the actual office holder, I could do more good. And so after that 2014 campaign, my team and I, we sat and did a debrief. And yeah, there were mistakes that we made. But uh, because of that debrief and because of that, we learned through our mistakes, we were able to correct that when we ran again in 2018. And so I was more prepared, I would say. Really, no one really kind of, knows how to run a campaign. And so it's just kind of how you do things in the moment, but once you have a campaign under your belt, then you feel a little bit more confident the second time, and that's exactly what happened. I'll give you one example. Um, in 2014, my first campaign, I was talking a lot about whatever was happening in the news, and I wasn't really staying disciplined to my message. And so whenever something would pop up in the news, I would make a comment about that, right? Well, if it didn't stick to my campaign platform, I wasn't going to make a comment about it. So that, that discipline on messaging is what I learned from failure in 2014. And so my story really is about persistence and perseverance. If I would have lost my first campaign and just said, that's it, I wouldn't be a member of our General Assembly at the moment. And so sometimes those doors will not only close on you, they may slam on you, and that's okay. I think that you just got to pick yourself up. Maybe just do a little bit of an, kind of a debrief, do some reflection, and then figure out the best way to move forward, which is what my team and I did. And again, I would not be a member of the General Assembly if I just lost that first election and then just kind of put it on the shelf and said, oh well, so I'm here in this seat proudly because I kept going, and that's my message to all of you.
Yeah, thank you for that really well story and nice message on accountability and determination, perseverance. I feel like this like can tie in with like digital footprint and like the message there about having discipline on what you say, and we thank you for that message, and we hope to share that with a lot more people. So, at Actify, one of our core val missions and values are like hearing what inspires leaders to take action. So, like, what key issues do you find yourself passionate advocating for the most, F- and why do they feel so meaningful to you?
Yeah, so I'm really passionate about just kind of the basic principles of life. So as I have a master's degree in education with a specific emphasis on human services, and so I remember learning about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and essentially what that basically says is that people, in order to thrive in this world, they've got to have a place to lay their head, water, social constructs, family, things of that nature, right? And the more the complex it can get based on kind of a triangle. And so when I try to think about the work that I do, I want to kind of replicate that. So do we have affordable housing in our community? Do people have the basic water and food that they need? Are people living their true and authentic selves? Which, for me is really important. I'm our only out serving member of the LGBTQ plus community. And so, I have a lot of passion about that. But I will be honest with you, sometimes the media just lists me as the gay senator, right? And I wish that, we lived in a world where it was, hey, that's Senator JD Ford, who also happens to be, openly LGBTQ. Or, hey, that's the senator that's working on all these wonderful issues. I, I wish that we could live in a world where we didn't even have to label ourselves, with that particular label. But yeah, I mean, healthcare is another important thing that I've been working on. Here in Indiana, we still have very high healthcare costs, some of the highest in the nation. So we've got to work on bringing those down. And that's some of the things that I've been focused on in my time in the General Assembly.
All right. As the first openly gay person elected in the Indiana legislature, how has your identity shaped your perspective on representation and inclusivity in public office?
Yeah, I mean, as kind of as I was mentioning, it is a piece of who I am, but it is not who I am. But I also recognize the enormous responsibility that comes with, being our only out-serving member. When I was a little boy, I didn't really see, or even as a young teenager, I didn't really see a lot of openly LGBTQ elected officials, and so I really thought to myself that that was never a thing for me, that I couldn't do that, right? And I think it's the old saying of that if you can see it, you can be it. And which is why I decided to run as an open LGBTQ member, because I didn't want, I thought to myself, people are going to elect me on the merits. They're going to elect me for who I am and what I stand for. And turns out that was right, and and because of that, I've been so focused on just trying to level the playing field for LGBTQ Hoosiers. But more importantly, I have young LGBTQ Hoosiers who recognize the work that I'm trying to do. So if you ever visit me at the State House, my office door is covered in rainbows. It really serves two purposes. One, it reminds me that people are watching what I do and what I'm saying and the role model that I am. And two, it reminds my colleagues that you don't just represent straight white people, that you represent the rainbow. There's many people from many walks of life, different orientations, different ethnicities, race, people with different religions. And so we can't just put our blinders on and just represent one set of people. So yeah, so I just feel like there is a lot that I can do in terms of LGBTQ issues and speaking on those issues, but more importantly, also being able to have one-on-one conversation with my colleagues and just kind of let them know like hey, I'm a regular normal human being just like you are, and here's how these policies could potentially harm me and my family or even my friends who are also part of the community.
Yes.
Perfect.
So, over the summer, I went to this camp in Brown University in Rhode Island, and I got to spend a day with one of the Providence senators. Her name was Tiara Mack, and she was also one of the first openly LGBTQ senators in Rhode Island, and it was really cool to see like all the similarities in like when I asked these questions and when she asked these questions to you, and it was just really just like cool to see all of the similarities between her and your response, and I thank you for that. And now I'm
Yeah.
gonna pass on to to Ellie.
Okay.
Is there a particular policy or bill that you've worked on that you're especially passionate or proud about that you think more people should know about?
Yeah, actually, this is actually coming very timely on the heels of Thursday. I had two pieces of legislation that I've been working on. One is surrounding postpartum depression for women who are going through that, but also fathers as well. And so I had the piece of legislation that got the health committee's stamp of approval, and so I'm thinking about potentially filing that legislation in the 2026 legislative session, which starts back up in January. And we are a part-time legislature, so we're not at the cap. We are at the Capitol throughout the year, but just not in session throughout the year. So we'll start back up in January. And that one is I'm really particularly passionate about because I've heard the testimony. We had many clinicians come. We had people who serve as doulas. We had people who had postpartum depression stories. And so, and also, as I mentioned, fathers, it doesn't just affect women. Dads can get it too. And so, my legislation would basically just say, hey, if you're bringing your baby to a pediatrician, maybe the pediatrician can help screen for depression. That catching it is so key. So it's a small dent that we can make in maternal mortality in our state. So that's that piece of legislation. And then my water safety curriculum. So I'm working with Senator Mark Spencer from Gary, Indiana. Senator Spencer testified on Thursday and mentioned that he, as an adult, has never learned to swim. And I actually was a lifeguard when I was in high school. That was my summer job. And so, I firmly believe that we should be teaching our kids, some sort of water safety. So, as students, you might know a little bit more than me, but you all have to do fire drills. You all have to do school safety drills, right? But what if you were to fall into a large body of water that was really deep? Would you know what to do? Most people wouldn't. They would panic, and that panic is what tires the body out, right? So there's for school shooter drills, we're taught to run, fight, hide, right? For water safety, we're supposed to flip, float, and follow. And those are the three words that we want people to know when if they ever were to experience, deep water and they don't know how to swim. So yeah, so just basically, kind of sliding that into a health class or to a PE class. It doesn't really have to be extensive, but it could just be something small. It could just be, a teacher playing a module to, for students to learn about that. Those are two things that just happened this week. I'm proud to be working on, amongst all the other issues that are going on at the moment.
That's actually, I'm trying to hide my excitement, but that's actually a crazy coincidence because I'm also working as a lifeguard right now.
Okay,
And yeah, I actually got my shift covered today to be here.
good
But
to hear.
I did research over the summer and especially on the ability in minorities to swim and I found out that it was a substantial amount of people that like child and youth that can't swim. And a lot of this was based on their parents not being able to swim. And I heard about your new legislation that you're bringing up, and it's just really cool to see that, especially since I've had to jump in and save people from drowning too. So that was just a really cool piece that you like to add into health classes and stuff. And I think that would lighten my burden as a lifeguard, but also
Yeah,
make water safety a more common thing in the world.
yeah. Yeah, actually, the Lawrence Township schools are doing a really good thing. They're teaching all of their fourth graders basically how to swim. It's a 2-day thing, and some of those folks were saying that, on the first day, the students are so nervous. But once they get in and they kind of experience it and they build a little bit of confidence, then they come back the second day and they're just more confident they were than the first day, and that's exactly what we would want, moving forward. So I don't know where that will go. It's just a proposal at the moment, but I think, it's something that we should keep talking about and keep working on. So,
Yeah, because at Carmel High School, we're so lucky to have such an amazing, school environment, and we have
yeah, you have a
a
nice
great,
pool.
great swimming program, and we really
Yeah.
hope that more people can also access that because we're very privileged to be able to access this. But in like down like other areas in Indiana, there's not enough funding for like any of these extracurriculars. So I think it's really important to be expanding this to everybody, so not just having this in certain areas. But I
Yep.
think it is a privilege. Yeah.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
All right. So our next question, and we our one of our another goals are to empower youth to speak up and get involved in civic life.
Hmm.
However, there are many young people that care about social issues and they post their opinion on platforms like TikTok, but they don't know how to properly deliver these issues to the right audience where they
Yeah.
can actually get the change. So what are some concrete steps students can take to get involved in local or state government?
Yeah, that's a great question, and really, I hope that people when they turn 17, that they start thinking about your civic duty really to vote and vote in every election, both the primaries and the general election. And the reason why I say that is because your vote is your voice in this government, right? And if you just sit there and say, well, my vote doesn't matter, well, then of course it doesn't matter because you haven't taken the steps to vote, right? And if people all think like that, then then you're not going to be able to have the impact that you would want. But if you say, you know what, it's my vote and it's my voice and I'm going to go exercise it, that's incredibly important because I believe that it's one of the greatest equalizers that we have in our country, right? When you step into that ballot box, your vote, it's as equal to the person who is standing next to you in that ballot box who might be a billionaire, right? That person may have a lot of money. You may not have a lot of money, but you have one vote and that person has one vote. Those votes might cancel each other out, but that's okay. That's part of voting, right? And it's our job as candidates and as elected officials to reach out to folks like you to explain to you why it's so important to vote, right? And I know that we hear so many people talking about potholes and school curriculum or whatever the case may be, right? But everything that we do is political, right? So really, we just really can't escape it. But your vote is how you say how you want your government to be shaped and the voices that are there, right? And so I would encourage folks to, to make sure that when they turn, 16, 17, that they start thinking about voting. And also, I would encourage our young folk to think about serving as a poll worker, watching democracy in action, seeing what it takes. I mean, I've served as a poll worker before I was a candidate as a senator. It's a long day, from 6 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock in the evening, but it is probably one of the most rewarding days because you see so many people come out and who are taking their job as citizens seriously. There's no other job more higher than being the office of the citizen, right? Because it's ultimately it's you guys who I work for. I work for the people. I like to joke and say that I have 135,000 bosses, and so, and I do my best to listen to the phone calls and the emails that come into the office. That would be my second piece of encouragement, is reach out to your local legislators, your state representatives, your state senators, write them, just like you guys did. You guys wrote me, I wrote you back, and this is why we're here today. Ask to have a meeting, whether it be in the district or at the state house, or ask to get coffee, and just sit and chat. And you'll learn that we're like just like you guys. We started somewhere. Yes, we do hold the title of representative or senator, and ultimately, I will say that even my friends on the other side of the aisle, they have a vision of what they want Indiana to look like, and we have a vision of what we want Indiana to look like. It's just the paths maybe look a little bit different on getting there, and right. And so, but your vote helps shape those paths, whether it be our path, my path, or my colleagues on the other side of the aisle's path. And what I tell people is that it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or Democrat. I just hope that you vote, on election day. So that would be the piece of encouragement and advice that I would give to you and to your colleagues.
So our next question is, many students don't realize what a state senator actually does day to day. Could you please walk us through what a typical day in your life looks like?
Sure, yeah, it just depends on whether or not we're in session or if I'm out of session. So let's say, for example, I'm in session. So next year is a short session, which means it's a non-budget session. So we'll be there from January to about middle of March. Now, if it's a budget year, we'll be there from about January to the end of April. And so the budget year obviously is the year that we must craft the state budget. So Indiana has about a $42 billion-ish budget. And so it's our job to kind of put that budget together and basically vote on it when it comes time to end session. Now, next session is not a budgetary session. So, we won't be dealing with a lot of budgetary items, but we will be dealing with different laws and rules and proposals. So we essentially make all the laws, for our state, and provide oversight on some of our state agencies and what they're doing. And so, for me, a typical day would look like I would get up about 6:30, 7:30 out the door. Try to be at the state house around 8 o'clock, to prepare for my day, meet with the staff. I have a legislative assistant. She shares the caseload with another senator, so I don't have full-time staff. But I do have a staff member who helps me prepare for my days. And I also have a press secretary. So this person helps kind of communicate, my social media, any press releases, things of that nature. So I meet with them, kind of get the lay of the land of what that day looks like. I'll typically have committee in the morning. So I actually serve on 8 committees. So I'll quickly tick them off for you. So I serve on the Family and Children's Services Committee, Elections, Homeland Security and Transportation, Military and Veterans, Health, Education, Commerce and Technology, and Utilities. So pretty much I have committee every day of the week. And then we usually have caucus, which means all of us gets together. My Democratic colleagues get together in our caucus room, and we talk about different bills that are on the agenda, different amendments that we're going to propose, and then we go down to the actual Senate floor and we have our Senate session for the day. And then depending on what is on the docket, and depending on what's controversial, we might be in session for 30 minutes or we might be in session for 8 hours, 8 or 8 plus hours. The last budget that we did, not this year, but the 2023 budget, I didn't get home until 3 o'clock in the morning because we were debating the state budget. So it just depends on how long and what's on the docket that day. And then typically in the evening, I'll try and grab a meal with one of my colleagues just to kind of learn about them, and then get home late, and then get up and do it all over again.
All right, thank you so much. Out of respect to our time is running out, so we want to respect your time, but we just want to leave with one final question. So,
Sure.
what advice would you give to someone who may feel unrepresented, who wants to become a policy or change maker one day? So, what kind of advice would you give to them?
Run for office. Yeah, I mean, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. If you can see it, you can be it. So if you want to be the change you wish to see, then run for office. And I made history when I took office as our only out-serving member of the LGBTQ plus community. If others want to, be the first, I'd say go for it. For me, our General Assembly needs to look like Indiana. And so, in our caucus, we have, our first ever Muslim elected. We have a Latino, we have Black women, Black men, we have, just an LGBTQ person. We just feel like our caucus, even though there's only 10 of us, 10 Democrats, 40 Republicans, we feel like our caucus at least looks like Indiana. And that lived experience is so important. And so I would just tell people run for office.
I have one unrelated question. Are you an
Sure.
IU fan or a Purdue fan?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask me that. I knew this was going to come up. I would say house divided, although I might lean a little Purdue Boiler Up because that's where my master's degree is from. But I will say that IU is having real momentum with their football program. I never thought that it would be, reversed where we would be cheering for IU in terms of football and cheering for Purdue for basketball. But whatever, I think we'll take it. I think all Indiana sports, whether it be the Fever or the Pacers, the Colts, IU, Purdue, I think they're all having a tremendous season. So
Yeah.
go Indiana sports. How about that?
Yeah. A win for Indiana is a win for us all.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
right.
yeah.
So
Yes.
we want to thank all the viewers for having taken their time out of their day to come and watch us. And we want to thank you. Want to express our gratitude towards you for coming on and being our first guest that were interviewed.
Okay,
And we're
awesome.
very honored to have your presence here with us
Mhm.
today.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you
Awesome.
so
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah.
All right, take care. Have a good weekend.
You too. Goodbye. Thank
Bye.
you.